Hey everybody, welcome to today's all new, super special edition of the brand new Badass Rebel Vegan Expert Panel Series. So today is such an incredible day. I know we are just getting into the holiday season. This is unprecedented. It is the first holiday season where people might feel alone and isolated due to situations and things that are completely out of their control. So today we are bringing you some unique and really helpful, actionable guidance to help you through this time. We know how important it is for you to maintain your health, body, mind, and spirit, always, but especially during the holiday season. It seems so hard for people to maintain health and to really keep in mind that their health and well-being is so incredibly important. So I want to say a big thank you to my expert panel who is here today. They have been kind enough to make time in their busy schedules to be here with me today for all of you. So thank you so much to Sean Hill, Doreet, Soul Eubanks, and Vanessa for being here with me today. I'm your host, Jane Elizabeth. So, it's always important to maintain your health and well-being, mind, body, spirit. So that's something that is always important, especially during the holiday season, though. It seems like it's so difficult to really create that space for yourself and to say it's okay to actually make time to spend on your health and well-being. So I'm going to first ask Sean to give some tips. So, top 3 tips on, what would you tell people? What would you tell your friends, your close personal friends, if they're struggling with feeling alone and isolated due to COVID, especially because, again, this is something that is unprecedented. This is our first holiday season dealing with COVID. We're going back into another lockdown. And, travel is very restricted right now. People are being told not to gather with their friends and family. So what are the top 3 tips you have for people who are feeling maybe alone, really isolated, and really lonely because of this?
Yeah. And you know what? I honestly really try to put a lot of thought into this beforehand to make it simple and easy for people to remember. So like all my top 3 tips will fall into this kind of 4 or 5 kind of word idea of creativity, connection, community, calm, and confrontation, right? And even the word confrontation, a lot of people get scared of that word as if it always has to be negative or hurtful or argumentative, when really it can be healthy and constructive and really actually give you all the things that you don't know that you need, right? So for me, my creativity helps me connect to myself. So I'm writing. I would recommend writing always, just every day, any part of your day, whenever you feel like doing it at your best, to really be honest with yourself, to just write for about 5 minutes and see what comes out. See what comes out thought-wise, feeling-wise, anything like that, that you don't even know you're thinking maybe. And it doesn't have to be poetic. It doesn't have to be Shakespearean. It doesn't have to be anything like that. Just your thoughts and feelings about what you're going through, your day, how you're feeling, anything like that. And then the second thing I would say is that after doing that, especially after doing that, where you might be feeling vulnerable or weird or awkward, is to connect with someone. Just have an honest conversation with a really trusted friend of yours and let them know how you're feeling. Let them know what you're thinking about. Maybe even share some of your writing, and trust that this person hopefully will know how to respond back and make you feel the sense of belonging or community that you want to feel right now. And then last but not least, I would say confrontation. Woo! It is more fun than you think, because so many of us focus on the scary part of the confrontation instead of the successful, beautiful closure that we get from when we confront something and it actually turns out great. So I would say even the things you're afraid to confront, or the things that maybe are in the back of your mind during this time, especially with family members. A lot of people are avoiding family members because of whether political kind of divisions or things like that in their mind, when really there's so much more to connect you with this person that you could relate to and talk about and actually get out the vulnerable things instead of always wanting to be right or wrong. So in terms of confrontation, I would recommend focusing on being there for the person, being vulnerable instead of always wanting to be right. So those are my top 3 so far, for sure.
I love that. And I love that you talked about confrontation in a way of really being in communication with people and having conversations and looking at what good could come out of having a difficult conversation with somebody, because you could connect with somebody in a way maybe you didn't think was possible. So I love those tips. They're all actionable, and being creative is something that really feeds your spirit. I mean, this is something that helps your mind relax, and you can get things out, and you don't have to be a quote unquote musician or poet or creator to do this. This is, everybody has those abilities. They just haven't tapped into them yet, a lot of people. So I love those tips. And of course, it's coming from somebody who is so talented as a poet and creator and actor and activist. So that means so much. And people can definitely look to you for, being a role model for, creativity and how to really, put their thoughts and feelings into words, because that is something that is so helpful and so useful. And there's something about pen to paper, kind of the old fashioned way, that's really therapeutic. I mean, that's something that I love. Yeah.
Just saying that made me feel great. Like just saying pen to paper, I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, whoa. So good. So good.
It's oddly satisfying to sit down with a pen that writes just right.
Mm-hmm.
Just right. See what I did there? And get your feelings out on a piece of paper, right? I mean, and it can be recycled. Don't worry. We're not going to, it doesn't have to be wasteful. But this is something that I think, anybody can do. If you prefer to do it on your device to save paper, that's totally fine too. That can also be great, because then you can go back and edit. Although I do like the idea of really not editing your thoughts and feelings, just putting them down as they are right now. And then you can go back. You never know. You may be writing poetry, or maybe a song or a book or something.
Actually, I was going to say that's actually part of the beauty of being free in the writing, is that when you go back, if you want to edit, that's great. You can do that to make it into something creative of a final piece. But in terms of first time, when you just want to get everything out, definitely do not edit, do not erase, don't go back or anything like that. And it's called a free write. The technical term for free write. Yeah, I just want to let you know.
I love that. I absolutely love it. From the poet himself, Sean Hill. Doreet, I'm going to bring that question to you. So tell me your top 3 tips for people who are feeling really alone and anxious this holiday season. What do you recommend as a way for them to deal with those feelings?
Well, I think anxiety comes from a lack of connection with ourselves. And I really like everything that Sean said, because that's all part of self-care. And most people do not know how to practice self-care. This is the perfect opportunity to indulge in self-care. So I say, go for extreme self-care. Go for it. One of the quickest ways to connect with oneself is through breath work. It's the deepest way we connect with ourselves. Just think about it. The breath is where life exists. How do we know somebody has died? The breath has left the body. How do we know somebody's alive? When they come in, the breath comes in. When we connect with breath, we connect with the entire power of the universe. We connect with the life. That is life. That is life. That's what signifies life. So I strongly suggest the breath work, of which there are so many different kinds. There's so many to choose from. And eventually you'll find the one that resonates most for you at this moment in time. That's the quickest way and the easiest way to make a deep connection with oneself, in my opinion. The second quickest way to make a deep connection with oneself is to sit with oneself. When you begin to enjoy your own company, you do not miss anybody anymore at all. One of the loneliest things is to be in a crowded space and not feel connected to anyone there. That's the feeling lonely. And that's really the deepest part of being lonely, is when you're with somebody else and you feel very lonely. So get to know yourself. There are many different things you can do to do that. Breathwork being the most important, movement being really, really so. As Sean was saying, be creative. Creative means anything and everything. And also, one of the most important things for me is to start watching and listening to films and media like songs and, like Sean said, poetry. Start indulging in those that will pull your vibrational energy up. Not things that will pull you down or get you more distracted from yourself or from life, but the opposite, that really help you to meet yourself right there, right in that moment, and get to know yourself. It's the lack of self-knowledge and self-awareness that creates the loneliness and the anxiety.
I love that, Doreet. I absolutely love what you just said. And I agree, because there are so many times when it doesn't make sense really to feel alone because you're surrounded by a group of people. But it is entirely possible. And actually, I think a lot of people deal with this quite frequently, that you can be surrounded by people or live with somebody and feel completely alone. That is one of the worst feelings in the world, because you feel like you shouldn't feel alone. You feel like what you're feeling is invalid because you're around so many people. And yet you feel so alone. And really, I love what you said, because, when you focus on yourself and really appreciating and enjoying your own company, this isn't selfish. This is self-care. And a lot of that has to do with healing too, I believe, which is really tough to do, because, you have to reflect on yourself, really dive deep into who you are. Like you said, sit with yourself, connect with your breath, do things that don't distract from who you are, but rather make you appreciate yourself more, and you'll never be lonely again. And it's not that you don't miss people, or that you don't enjoy other people's company. But I feel like when you really appreciate who you are, you not only appreciate your own company more, you are better company for other people as well, because you show up as your authentic self. You're not trying to impress anybody, because you know exactly who you are. So I love that, Doreet. That was beautifully said. And I'm writing these things down. If anybody is noticing that I'm looking down, it's not that I'm not paying attention, it's that I'm writing down these tips as well, because I think that, they are so unique and they're so useful. And this is something that I wanted to keep for myself. And I will also post these so that people can, take all of these tips. They're actionable and they're so useful for our entire audience. So Christopher Eubanks, I want to bring the same question to you. What are your top 3 tips for people who are feeling alone or isolated this holiday season?
Well, thanks for having me here. And it's so great to be on such an amazing panel. I think a lot of what I will say is actually going to echo what Doreet said. I think we're on the same wavelength with some of the thinking that we are on and wanting to share with other people. So I would say one of the first things you can do is find some sort of peaceful activity. I know for me, that comes through a variety of things. I think for a lot of people, it can vary. So this can be meditation, it can be running. And the purpose of finding a peaceful activity is so you can audit your thoughts. Your thoughts lead to your actions. So the things that you constantly think about, they tend to manifest themselves. So it's very good to take a mental inventory of what's going on inside of your head. So if you're running a lot, or if you're constantly doing meditation, you'll start to understand that, wow, this person or this thing or this subject is constantly on my mind. Why is this person or thing or subject constantly on my mind? And why is it making me feel this way? And I think a lot of times when we are busy out living the world and working, we don't get a chance to analyze our thoughts. We get a chance to just exist, and whatever happens in our head happens. And, that dictates a lot of our actions, but we never get a chance to analyze it and see the impact that it's having on us. So whatever that peaceful activity may be, like I said, whether it's meditation, whether it's running, whether it's going to a sauna, whether it's taking a hot shower for 20 or 30 minutes, whatever it is, find a way to really understand what you're thinking about. And I would say the next tip would be to practice self-care. And when I say self-care, really understand that this can play out through a variety of ways. This could be saying no more often. This could be saying more often. Just being mindful of how the things that you do in your life impact how you feel. So maybe there are friends in your life where you may need to really address and see if these people are as healthy for you as you think. And all of this goes into self-care. It's very important to put yourself first, not to be selfish, but to understand that, you are living inside of your body, your vessel, your spirit, and you really have to take care of that energy, because energy is real. The way that you act with other people and the way that you put your emotions out does impact your life. So definitely take care of yourself and do self-care. So whether that's, taking time out to say, you know what, today I'm going to watch TV and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to start to limit how often I say yes to people, or say no to people. Just make sure that you are taking care of yourself and your spirit more often. And also that could be doing therapy also. There's nothing wrong with, in terms of, when I was speaking earlier about analyzing your thoughts, therapy is another form of self-care, just to have another opinion about what you're thinking about, what you're doing, and paying more attention to your spirit, your energy, and your thoughts. And I would say lastly, be mindful of the things that you consume mentally. So along with that self-care, if you start to notice that, when you see certain news reports or certain things about, even right now, COVID, I myself had to limit how much of the updates I were paying attention to. Even with the election, I watched a certain amount, or for a certain amount of time of day. And that's because I understand that the things I consume mentally also play into my thoughts and manifest themselves into my actions. So be careful what you put into your brain, the kind of people that you have around, the kind of conversations that you have, the things that you consume, the music that you consume, the television that you consume. Just be mindful of how that impacts your energy and your spirit.
I love that, Christopher. And all of those things are so wonderful. They're so actionable. And I love that you said, listen, self-care looks different for everybody. This is something that is so great for people to understand, that it doesn't look just one way, which is really a fantastic thing. And like you said, to find a peaceful activity. And I love that you said this could be something like meditation. It could also be something like running. So because not everybody, feels comfortable with meditation or, doing something like that, but maybe they feel really comfortable doing a physical activity that for them brings them peace and allows them time to really gain clarity and be with their thoughts and figure out, like you said, why is this subject or this person or this, whatever this happens to be, why is this on my mind so much? And until you really dive into that and understand why something is coming up over and over and over again in your thoughts, why it keeps entering your mind, it's really difficult to actually have peace with anything, because you have something that is kind of burdening you. So you're sitting with your thoughts. And like you said, therapy is something that is really useful for people. So I love that you brought that up, because there is no shame in seeking outside help. And I think that there has been such a stigma about seeking help. And this is something that goes back for decades and decades, centuries even, because, in the past, if people said, gosh, I don't feel quite right about this or about that, they would be shunned and ridiculed, criticized for saying that, or for saying, I need help. In years past, people would be institutionalized for something like that. So there's this stigma that is so ingrained in society, in who we are, that it's difficult to ask for help. Well, you know what? We are creating a new normal where it is okay to ask for help, and it is good. It is so good when you need help to understand that there are people there whose whole lives are devoted to serving you and to being there for you. And they are educated in this field. They are experts at what they do. And there is no shame in that. In fact, this is something that you should be proud of. When you say, I'm going to break that cycle in my family, I'm going to seek help because nobody else would, and I need to figure this out. I need to break this cycle. That is something to be so proud of. And I love that you said that. And really taking mental inventory of what's going on in your own life. I love that you mentioned that as well, because this is huge. I mean, you can be so consumed by your own thoughts. And like you said, what you see on social media and TV and everything else, you can be so consumed that there's no space for anything good or decent. If all you're seeing is something negative, there's no space for creativity. There's no space for any type of joy or positivity. So, and I'm not saying to look through rose-colored glasses all the time. What I'm saying is I totally agree with you, and limiting what you watch and what you see. And if something isn't good for you, then limit that. And like you said, saying no is a form of self-care. That is huge. If anything else, I would love for people to take that away from this portion of the conversation. Saying no is a form of self-care. Own your no. Make it a no. You don't have to explain yourself. Make it a no. You can be kind. Make it a no and let it be. I love that. So thank you so much for that advice. So Vanessa, I'm going to bring it to you. Tell me what your top 3 tips are for people who are feeling alone and isolated right now. What are your tips that are actionable for this holiday season so they don't feel so alone and isolated?
Well, I'm really glad that we're bringing up therapy as something that is a wonderful way of taking care of yourself and dealing with issues, because I am a psychotherapist and have dealt with that stigma for many years of people still these days saying, well, I'm not crazy. And what I always say is that seeking therapy is the least crazy thing that you can do. It's saying that we didn't grow up with the coping skills on how to deal with all these situations, on how to deal with anxiety and unexpected events, and how do I adapt, and am I going to be okay with the world being completely different? And so we didn't grow up with that. So how do we expect that we're going to know how to do it? I can't just pick up a violin and play or start acting when I've never, studied in any way. So I think that whatever it is that you need to take care of yourself is something to honor. And therapy is a wonderful way of doing it, whether it's doing it on your own through a lot of self-reflection and reading or videos, or going to see somebody like me. I think it's a great way of working through and learning. To me, the biggest part of it is undoing the brainwashing that tells us that we're not adequate as we are, and that we need to consume. We need to buy this lipstick to look better, and get this car, and get this house, and get whatever these products are that we need to have in order to feel better about ourselves. And especially during the holidays, when there's so much of that consumer-driven advertising that's out there, we're so given that message that we need to consume in order to be more adequate, in order to feel better. And so having this place where we're going inside and we're honoring ourselves rather than saying, I'm not okay unless I buy this, is a huge step. And so really looking at that brainwashing that is the negative messaging of why I'm not good enough, I'm not adequate, all those negatives that are why we feel bad. It's not because we're alone that we feel bad. It's because we have a negative perspective about ourselves that we feel bad being alone. If we all, like Doreet, got to know ourselves really well and honored ourselves, we would never feel alone. We would be fine during these periods of isolation that we're in order to really go in and have a deeper and more intimate connection with ourselves. And a lot of times, silence is a great way of doing that. And meditation, which can be sitting there meditating, lying down, walking, running, meditation can look so different for different people. But for me, it really is taking a pause on the outside distractions, going inwards, and just seeing how it feels, seeing what's happening in my body, seeing what my breath is doing, what different things feel like. That's a way of putting a pause in everything that's going on and just honoring and connecting with yourself. So for me, I think it's really important to seek help if we need it, like we said, in whatever form that is, and challenging those negative beliefs that we have about ourselves, expressing gratitude. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways of reframing how we're seeing ourselves in the world. Oh, I'm so busy, I never have time. Reframing that to how wonderfully active my life is and how full, and I'm grateful that I have these opportunities. So I think that honoring yourself, expressing gratitude, figuring out what really excites you in that radical self-care, the saying no is part of honoring yourself, because if you kind of feel like, oh, I should do that, the minute there's a should, flags should start going, I just did it. Flags will probably start going up in your head when you hear a should, because a should is usually an external expectation of behavior of what it needs to look like. So I would say definitely be watching those shows. And also see travel. Travel doesn't have to be going somewhere. Travel can be watching a play, reading a book, anything that allows your mind to see what it's like to be somewhere or someone else, get an insight into that. That's a wonderful way of going. It's not so much running away as running inward. When you travel, you explore a new part of town, maybe that you don't know. You're in a different setting, and it allows a little break from your regular life, and to me, it allows deeper reflection and deeper going inward. So you're taking away those distractions, like with meditation, that can get you caught up in the anxiety of the world, but going inward and having that deeper look through all of these different methods that everyone has so brilliantly talked about is a very powerful way of nurturing that garden that's growing inside us.
Yeah, I love that, Vanessa. And I love everything you just said. And like you were saying, seeking therapy, it's really important because, like you said, there is all this brainwashing telling people they're not enough. They're not good enough. They're not smart enough. They're not pretty enough. They're not fit enough. They don't have enough things, which is absolutely ridiculous because everybody has self-worth. That isn't something you gain. That isn't something you create. You are worthy as you are. Sometimes it needs to be uncovered, and you can always work on your self-esteem because that is something that you work on. Your self-worth is a part of who you are. You have had that from the moment you were conceived. You are worthy of creating the life you deserve. You are worthy of having good relationships. You are worthy of being, a whole person that is comfortable and confident in who you are, in yourself. You don't need these external things to gain any type of approval from anybody. And I think that is so, so important. And I love that you said, let's undo that. Let's rewire your brain so that you can break that cycle. Be the last person in your family who, buys into all of those limiting beliefs, all of those unhealthy behaviors, and really move forward in a healthier way. Because whether people have children or not, what they don't realize is that unhealed trauma, which that's what that is passed down to the next generation, whether it is your children or somebody else's. It could be your friends, it could be other family, it could be people you interact with on a professional level. Unhealed trauma does not end with you. It is passed on. So it is your responsibility to deal with it and to heal with it. And it is so amazing that there are so many wonderful therapists who are out there to help you through this, because you are not alone. You don't have to do this by yourself. And I love that you echoed what Doreet and Christopher said about, really finding yourself and being at peace with who you are, and, really being with yourself. Because when you are comfortable and confident in who you are, when you enjoy your own company, you are at peace with yourself, you won't be lonely. You're never going to be lonely again. So that is something I absolutely love that you said. And also practicing gratitude. I mean, that is huge. It is probably one of the most underestimated things, I think, that people don't realize will have such a huge impact on their lives. If people can just wake up in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever you wake up. I mean, if you're a night owl while you sleep all day, that's fine too. But when you wake up, if you can list 3 things for which you are grateful, and then I like to add to that the reason why you're grateful for them, and then add one more thing, 3 things you're going to accomplish for the day. That is life-changing, because you then are grateful for what you have while you work for what you want. I'm not talking about material things. I'm talking about something like, let's say you've always wanted to start that book that's sitting there gathering dust. That can be one of your things that you do today. You can start it. Read the first chapter. Just open it up. Do something today. It's actionable. Something today that you can do. Start learning that instrument that you've always wanted to learn. Sign up for online classes, or maybe look up how to begin on YouTube, right? Do something like that. It's so, so incredible. Make that phone call you've been wanting to make. You've wanted to connect with a friend and you just haven't made the time yet. Maybe that's something you do today. Maybe like Sean said, you start writing. Just because you want to start, you don't even know where it's going to go, but you just have a free writing session with yourself. You time yourself for 10 minutes. Anything that comes to mind, you do. Those can be 3 things you can do. So I love all of your responses to this question. And these are things that are so, so useful for our audience, because having a plan can sometimes give people peace of mind. Because, you know, when you have a plan, you have all of these different options to choose from. It's like going on a trip, right? You can have an itinerary where things are planned to the 15 minutes, right? You can do that. It's okay. But it's great to have an itinerary and also have, you know, so that you know you can get to your flight on time, right? And you have a hotel lined up. But it's also so great when you have all of these possibilities. You've looked, you've researched, you know a lot of different ideas and opportunities that are at this destination. You're like, you know what? I have all of this to choose from. So whatever works for me in that moment, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to plan it ahead of time, but I've got a loose plan so I can adjust for what I feel like in that moment. And that's what I feel you've just given our audience is, you know, we have an itinerary, you know what to do. So you're going to make it through. You're going to be okay. You're going to be healthy. These are all of your options on how to do that and how to enjoy the ride from now through New Year's. And once you start off your new year, really, really well like this, in this state of being that is so healthy, the whole year is going to go that way. So that is absolutely fantastic. So we have time probably for one more round. And I'm going to ask you, we're going to switch gears just a little bit. Okay, so everybody this time of year especially, and maybe the rest of the year too, I don't know. But people love to indulge in delicious food, delicious treats, right? Because whether you are by yourself or, you know, maybe you have people who are in your quarantine circle, you have socially distant gatherings, or, you know, maybe you with your family, you know, at home, or maybe you have virtual gatherings, but you're eating something delicious, right? So people a lot of times struggle with, do I allow myself to indulge a little bit? How do I stay healthy? How do I take care of myself while enjoying what I eat? And so that's something that I would like to bring to all of you, because food always comes up when it comes to talking about self-care and being healthy. So what is your opinion? What are your top 3 tips on how people can enjoy their holiday season without feeling guilty and maybe have some of the things they really enjoy eating? So I'm going to ask Sean to come on first with his answers, because I know he is so great at personally, you know, really being able to enjoy the moment and indulge a little bit and get right back on track to eating, you know, healthy and taking care of himself. So I'd love to hear what your top 3 tips are for that question.
Oh, Jane, you know me too well. You know me too well. I would say, okay, here's the thing. I definitely have done a lot of the inner research to even understand better what my relationship with food is. You know, I'm going to go that deep. I'm just going to go that deep first. Okay. As in terms of writing and being a writer as well. I would say there was a series of workshops I was doing where we talked about words like beauty, right? Peace, understanding, compassion, right? All these words that the everyday person knows. We know what those words mean, but when you really dive into them, there were so many times people told me like, oh, wow, like I thought I was compassionate already. And I realized there's so many things that I wasn't doing compassionately. Or they would say, you know what, I thought I understood the word beauty. And, you know, and I really wanted to kind of even compliment someone on their beauty without making it feel like that's the only good thing about them or something like that. And all these kind of little nuances about a simple word. And so to think of food, I think of my whole relationship to food since my family first introduced it to me when I was a baby. You know what I mean? I think about how all the people that I know that have had weight issues or kind of this fluctuating weight problem that they think they have, or that they've told themselves they have, or that they have been actually dealing with their whole life. It affects everyone differently depending on how good they feel about themselves and who they are, right? So even your self-confidence or your self-esteem, I would look at that in relation to your food and see actually why you want to be good eating not too much, you know, sugary foods, or to be good and not eat too much of that food or this food. What is your intention with food? What is your intention with your health? What is your intention with who you are and how you relate to food. I think those are the kind of 10-minute free writes that you could dive into and really even understand why you avoid that food for your whole life, or why this food always reminds you of your mother, or why that food really makes you want to throw up and like you hate it. You know what I mean? Whatever the reason is. And I have even noticed that in my relationship, I there's this one food of pot stickers, right? Of these Trader Joe dumplings that I get that make me think of her. And it's so incredibly sweet. And at the same time, it's kind of weird when you think about it, right? You're like, I'm eating this food and I'm thinking of another human being right now, right? But I just want to refuel my body and feel good about it. So then it's this whole beautiful emotional, mental, physical dance that you're having with yourself every time you pick up a plate to eat. And I think it just benefits us all to really actually discover what food means to you personally. I'll say that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really, really great that you said, what is your intention with food and with your health, and really understanding that relationship with food. And you touched on something really, really great, especially going into this holiday season. There is so much emotion wrapped up in tradition. And what is it we have with every celebration, every holiday, any get together? We have food. If it's a birthday, what is it about? The birthday cake. If it's a gathering for any type of holiday, we are so centered around the food that people really struggle sometimes with kind of breaking from tradition. Let's say they are trying to go vegan, their family's not. There's an emotional attachment to those meals you've always had. And you can smell something, taste something, or see something, and it brings you back to childhood. It makes you think of somebody. There's an extreme emotional attachment to food. And I think that is both a blessing and a curse in a way, because people feel like they can't let go of certain foods that might not fuel their body in a healthy, productive way, simply because it reminds them of their family. Maybe right. It's a recipe that has been passed down for so many years, but there is a way, once you, like you said, what is your intention with food? Why do you feel the way you feel about food? Let's say maybe you want to continue that tradition. You can alter that recipe to fit what your intentions are now with food. So you can make something healthier, you can make something plant-based, you can even make something whole food plant-based or raw. You can do so many things to honor traditions and honor those relationships while still, making it healthy for you and fall in line with your intentions with food now. And like you said, why do people feel so guilty about indulging sometimes? And really diving into that and understanding that and knowing that indulgence is okay sometimes. And, understanding why maybe you feel guilty going down that path and why you're, maybe punishing yourself if you do. So what is the reason why? Because once you understand that, it's amazing, because that burden of being so emotionally attached to food starts leaving, and you start to be able to make decisions based on your health, your well-being, and your intentions with food. So I love that you said that, Sean. That is so great. And I'm going to bring Doreet on next to talk about food and how people can really balance that desire to have some indulgences, to have maybe some recipes that have been passed down, especially during this holiday season, and how they can balance that with making choices that are also healthy for their bodies. What are your thoughts on that, Doreet?
Well, I am definitely not into holidays. I believe that they were created by others, and that there are different reasons behind them, and that they are so emotionally charged with certain words, and that language is, we respond so much to the language around it that we give our power away. I think it's one of the most disempowering things that we do, is to celebrate what we have been told is a holiday. It's very interesting that during this so-called holiday, you have to eat certain things only, and only at this time of year do you eat this. And you must indulge in it because this is excellent for you, and this is how you treat yourself well. Do you realize that most of the world do not have holidays now? For most people in the world, there are no holidays. But it's almost like it's written in stone that this is a holiday. I say challenge it. challenge that you have to be someplace at a certain time, eat something at a certain time, do something. For me to think that I can walk almost from one home to another, one apartment to another, and everyone is eating the same thing, I find very bizarre and very disempowering. And if you do not eat it, then you're the exception, and then people start feeling badly about themselves. I think all these things are just fairy tales that have been handed down. And it's time to dissect the fairy tales and to look them in the eye and take our power back.
I love that, Doreet. I absolutely love what you just said. And I agree, it's really interesting because the most important thing, let me just say, so for holidays, I think the most important thing is to gather with people you love. I think that is beautiful. That's a beautiful tradition. It doesn't need to be focused on the food you eat. So I believe that, sometimes though, these holidays, it's the only time people see people they love and care about. And that should not be how it is. That the norm should be, if people, are feeling like they really want to have a connection with somebody. And right now I know it's really difficult, but this should be something that you do all year long. This shouldn't be something that is just saved up for, Christmas and Easter, whatever holidays it is you celebrate with your family, Thanksgiving. This is something that you should be doing all year long, is seeing and connecting with people you love and care about. So the fact that we tend to limit it to these holidays or to birthdays, that is something like you said, I would love to challenge that part of it. Not necessarily, holidays exist. Okay, they exist. That's great. But what do you do? There doesn't need to be an excess of material goods. There doesn't need to be an excess of food. And like you said, who says you have to be in a certain place at a certain time, eating a certain way with certain people? Listen, if it serves your purpose, fantastic.
Yes.
Go ahead and do it. But if it doesn't serve your purpose, go ahead and say no, because you know what? It is time to break with traditions that no longer serve your purpose and saying no, creating your own way. This is so empowering. Let me tell you, just from personal experience, that it is a little scary. You may get some pushback. People may give you a hard time because it is so frightening to people to think that there's a different way of doing things, right? But there's always a different way of doing things. Always. We're always learning and growing and exploring new options. That's the beauty of living, of being a human being, is understanding that, listen, maybe I'm so stressed out at the idea of seeing people I really don't want to see on this particular holiday. It's causing me anxiety just to even think about getting in my car to go there, and I keep making excuses, and I want to show up late. It's kind of like there's a t-shirt I saw that said, "Sorry, I'm late. I didn't want to come." And I just think for a lot of people, that's how it feels. And the thing is, it is hilarious. There's nothing wrong with it, though. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I'm going to skip it. So, and then saying maybe to the people you actually want to see, people who make you feel good, people who you connect with, whether it is your family or your friends or whoever it might be, maybe brand new people, who knows? It's okay to instead spend your time, invest your time with those people, because time and energy are currency. We have such a limited amount that I feel like you need to invest it wisely. So if you're doing things that don't serve your purpose, you are doing things that stress you out, that are unnecessary, and there are going to be necessary stresses, of course. Like if you have kids and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to work and feed my kid, that's a necessary stress. It's okay, because that actually keeps you moving, keeps you going. That's okay. So some stress is okay. But when it comes to these unnecessary stresses, like seeing people that really do not serve your purpose, they maybe stress you out to the point where you feel anxious, and you go home and you have to recover after seeing certain people. Maybe it's time to start saying no. So thank you so much, Doreet, for that. I really love your advice. This is fantastic. I'm going to bring the question now to Christopher. What is your advice for people when it comes to holidays and traditions, when it comes to food, or maybe just the tradition itself? How do people balance being able to indulge and maybe have some of those same traditions with still honoring their purpose and their health and well-being? Can you tell me just a little bit about your advice and what you would tell your friends if they were to come to you with this question?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the times the reason that we pay so much attention to what we eat is because how it impacts our physical being. So I would say one of the best things that you can do is just honestly monitor your health all the time or on a consistent basis. Make sure that you're getting your checkups, make sure that you're feeling good, listen to your body. Because if you're feeling good and you're able to, get up and be mobile and move around, you're probably less concerned about what you eat. You're not going to stress out about the things that you put in your body if you're feeling good and feeling vibrant. And I think that, when we talked about self-care, we obviously have to talk about our physical well-being too. Just because you are X amount of pounds, that doesn't mean that you're unhealthy. Just because you're athletic, that doesn't mean that you are healthy. So I think you just have to really make sure that your body is properly functioning, and all of those, things that we are concerned about. Is this ice cream going to be bad for my health? Or, these plant-based burgers that I'm eating, are they the healthiest? When you're paying attention and listening to your body and putting time and energy into your well-being physically as much as you can, I think that also helps. I would say one of the things that I personally recently started doing was just counting the calories that I eat. So this isn't just to, hit some goal or some target, but it's just when we spoke about inventory of your thoughts, I just wanted to take an inventory of how much food am I consuming throughout the day. Am I over consuming? Am I under consuming? Like, why am I consuming X amount of foods at X amount of times? Am I eating more at night? Why am I eating more at night? Am I eating because I'm up all night because something is on my mind and now I just want to consume something to just give me some kind of comfort? So it's just, a way of doing another level of self-inventory. So yeah, I would say for me, counting calories work. Maybe for other people, there's another system, but just, be mindful of what you are consuming. And, like I said earlier, just make sure that you're taking care of your body. Your health isn't designated or isn't attached to a certain body type or a certain body weight. Just feel good, do an inventory of what you eat, and maintain your
I love
health.
that, Christopher. That is so useful. And I will say, like you said, for some people, counting calories does work. And what I was hearing you saying when you were saying that is it wasn't really about the calories. It was more like a food diary. Like, what am I eating? When am I eating it? And why? And a lot of times when people struggle with overeating, it's because they're stressing out about something else. So they are consumed mentally and emotionally by certain things. So they will overeat. They'll have a day of overindulgence. And, my clients will ask me this. They're like, I just don't get it. There's a certain day that I just stress out and I just eat everything in sight. I just can't stop eating. So one of the things I ask is there something significant that happened on the anniversary of today? What else has happened this week even? And how are you feeling? What were you feeling like when you got up in the morning? What was on your mind? And usually this is a physical response to emotional distress. So overeating isn't really about the food. It's a physical response to emotional distress. And that is huge. And actually taking inventory of what you're eating and when can be very, very useful, because if somebody is super stressed out and exhausted, a lot of times they're actually really struggling to sleep and get restful sleep. And so what they will do to compensate for that is eat at night. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't eat at night. If you are somebody who goes to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're probably going to eat until maybe 1 o'clock in the morning, because that's just how it goes. So I'm not saying don't eat at night. If you go to bed at 8 o'clock, though, maybe you don't want to eat at 7:30. Maybe you do, but maybe you want to make it like, something healthy like potatoes or oatmeal or something that will like keep you full till you wake up in the next morning. But it is really important to understand the why. So why is it I'm staying up till 4 a.m. and I'm exhausted? So you may be sitting there, binge watching Netflix or something. I'm exhausted. I can't seem to fall asleep. And then I'm eating and I'm eating and I'm eating. And you just keep eating. There's a reason why that the mind doesn't shut off. And a lot of that has to deal with what we were talking about before about really taking inventory of your thoughts and your emotions and understanding the why and doing all that healing that's necessary so that you understand that this could very well be a coping mechanism. A lot of people use food as a way to cope with stress and with trauma, with loss, with grief. This is something that people do because it's not that they're weak. It's not that it's bad or wrong. Sometimes people do this as a way to simply survive. So being kind to yourself too, I think is huge because this is something that can then lead you down this path of healing. And not everybody's going to get it like that. Not everybody's going to go, okay, I'm going to be totally healthy starting from tomorrow on or starting from this moment on. I'm going to make all healthy decisions with my food, with my fitness. That's usually not how it works. And if people tell you it works that way, I don't think they're being completely honest because it's typically a journey for everybody. It looks different for everybody and it's okay. Be kind to yourself. Take inventory of the why behind what you're eating, the why behind why you can't sleep, the why behind why we're celebrating holidays, the why behind why you feel so emotionally attached to food, certain types of food. And that can explain a lot. So I love that because it touched on so many things. So Vanessa, I'm going to bring it to you. And this is our last question of the day before we wrap up. So this has been such an amazing panel. And I want to thank all of you before we get to Vanessa. Thank all of you for being here today. Sean Hill, Doreet, Christopher, Vanessa. Thank you so much for being here because just your advice is so useful. This is something that everybody can use going into this holiday season and starting the new year on a really healthy, positive note. Because you know what? It is so easy to go down that path of being negative and feeling like if I'm not doing it good enough today, I may as well just wait until January 1st to start over again. Every single moment you have a chance to begin again. If you just ate something that maybe you're not proud of, okay, right now you have a chance to begin again. You don't have to wait till January 1st. You don't have to wait till tomorrow. You don't have to wait till Monday. Your chance is right now. So don't throw your whole day away just because you made one decision that you're not proud of. Understand that decision may have very well been you coping with something. Maybe it was just a bad decision. You knew it was. You know it. Don't feel guilty about it. Move on starting now. So Vanessa, thank you so much for graciously being the last one to answer this question. What advice do you have for people on kind of balancing indulgence? And I feel like you're the perfect person to be the last one to answer this question because you make some of the most decadent desserts I've ever seen in my life. And I'm jealous every time I see one because I want to go and just like bury my face in the whole pan because it looks that good. So tell me your advice for our whole audience as far as how they can balance indulgence this time of the year, especially with the foods they know and love so well and being healthy at the same time.
Thank you so much, Jane, and what an honor to be on here with all these great minds with such wonderful, wonderful tips for people. And overall, I actually scribbled down some specific tips, but overall, philosophically, like Sean was talking about, diving into your relationship with food, one of the things that I always think about, and I used to be a personal trainer many, many years ago, and I used to really think about this with my clients, which is when your self-esteem has gotten to a certain point where you value the temple, taking care of yourself, you really see the difference between immediate gratification and long-term, what's actually good for you. So when I don't feel that I deserve to have longevity and health and strength and to really honor myself, then I just want the immediate gratification and just lose myself for a moment and just have that drink or that chocolate or soda or whatever kind of thing. And I just want that rush because ultimately that's all I feel I deserve. if I truly feel like I deserve long-term health, then I'm not going to want to do those things that pollute the temple. So that's kind of my overall thesis that I look at. And I definitely think that people should have fun. And I do call myself the decadent health nut because I like to make really decadent things that are actually still healthy. And especially during the holidays, I completely agree with Doreet about the arbitrariness, and we should be kind and loving and caring to people all year round, not just at this time and consume this and have this and do all that. But I'm just going to give a slight counterpoint, which is that for me, I had a rough time growing up. It was a fairly bleak and depressing household, and holidays were the only times in my family that were actually fun, where we got to play and do something different and nice, and where my parents paid attention to me. So for me, holidays were a wonderful thing because they were playing and bonding and connecting. And we didn't really do traditions, so I can't really speak about being forced to do this or go there because that wasn't really how it was in my family. So I actually liked the traditions and the rituals as long as they don't harm anyone, because they create a sense of closeness. So it just depends on how it's done, and I think the context. But during the holidays, since we are going to have them no matter what, and they are a time of stress and tension for a lot of people, just from a psychotherapy point of view, the tips that I say for people, definitely the no guilt and making decisions every moment. You are constantly renewing yourself, so that's for sure. But the first thing I say is to keep your regimen going of exercise, meditation, walking, whatever you do, keep that going. Make sure you're still honoring and being consistent with that, because that's what helps ground you and really take good care of you. The second thing is drink a lot of water. Water throughout the day, keep hydrated, because a lot of times you think you're hungry when you're actually just thirsty. Drink a lot of water. Hot soups are also great because they really fill you up. And try those different things, but in small amounts. Just small amounts to get the taste buds. You're not going to taste it more because you have massive quantities of it. You want that taste, you just need a little taste to get that idea. And the third thing is use date sugar. It doesn't raise your glycemic levels. That's all my desserts are with date sugar. Has tons of B vitamins and fiber and is really healthy. I use nuts for the creaminess because I'm oil free. I do a lot of mac and cheeses with sweet potatoes that are so creamy and luscious. I do caramel lentil brownies that are so sweet and moist and rich. There's so many yummy things that are from the natural world that are not chemically created and bad for you. And I was just thinking today that when we have desserts, they sell it as something natural because our body naturally wants those things. It's not like I have food coloring cookies. Nobody says that, and nobody's going to buy that. FD&C number, red number 4. That's not how we manufacture and market things. It's like blueberry flavors. You think that's because maybe we like blueberries? So how about we go to the blueberry? The actual things in nature are really yummy. And if we want to make them a little more, quote, decadent, then add some creaminess of nuts. Maybe have a date and almond crust that you grind up, and then put blueberries and sweet potatoes, one of my favorite desserts, together with a little date sugar and some spices, and make that into a pie. There's so many ways of eating a rich, filling, fulfilling foods that don't harm anyone and don't harm my own health, and that you can eat during the holidays or any feast and feel good about it. Why go through a holiday and then get really down on yourself with all these things you've eaten and you wanted to try them because they're in front of you and it's hard to resist temptation? So I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that, I'm going to have that. Why do that to yourself? Just fill it with foods that can be made in ways that are healthy and life-affirming and beautiful for me, the animals, and nature. Then there's no guilt. And eat as much as you like of it because it's full of fiber and full of nutrients and all that good stuff. And then go on a wonderful meditative walk with your friends and family, loved ones, whoever, as a wonderful end to the day. It's completely possible to have your cake and eat it too, and to enjoy yourself fully and not feel guilt during these times, and to really keep taking care of yourself throughout it. So those are my tips. I really appreciate everyone being on here. I've taken all kinds of notes from what you all said. And thank you all. Thank you, Jane, for putting this together. You're all beautiful, brilliant souls, and I'm grateful and honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for sharing your tips. I love that. I love what you said. I love everybody being here today. And just to reiterate some of the things that Vanessa said, you can healthify and yummify anything. And when you are eating healthy as a default, the thing is, and that to me shows that you are really appreciating and loving yourself enough and valuing yourself to make those decisions. And then you can look at the abundance of choices you have when you have made that transition and you are really eating all of this abundance that nature has to offer. You're eating plants, right? You're eating fruits and vegetables and grains. You're no longer looking at restriction. You're looking at abundance. And what that does to your body, your mind, and your spirit is it gives you this freedom of not worrying about what you're putting on your plate because you're making choices that are nourishing you with every bite you take. And I love that you can make anything vegan. You can even take it so far as making things whole food plant-based. You can make things raw vegan. There are so many options. I absolutely love all of your tips, all of the advice that you have given our audience. I want to thank every single one of you for making this time because I know you are all super busy. So thank you for being here today with me, for being on this expert panel. This is absolutely fantastic. Everybody going into the holidays now has so many options of what they can choose to do to keep themselves healthy and to really feel good about themselves and to maintain that physical, mental, and spiritual health during this holiday season and beyond. Thank you everybody for being here today for this episode of Badass Rebel Vegan, the expert panel edition. Thank you to Sean Hill, Doreet, Christopher, and Vanessa for being here. I'm Jane Elizabeth. We will see you next time. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.